All right, it's bye week Thursday, Penn State football fans, as Penn State is off this week after its 2-0 start on Bob Flounders, joined on the Blue White Breakdown by Max Ralph. Still pretty eventful bye week, Max, I would say, for Penn State. It just seems like that's just the way of the world. There's very few offseason weeks that aren't eventful in major college football for programs. That's the case with Penn State, whether it's injuries, whether it's prominent Penn State players maybe allegedly running afoul of the law. There was some availabilities this week. You were up at practice. We can get to all that. Where would you like to start, Max?
Let's start with practice. Why not? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Most
we got
recent
some
thing.
we got a good look at some stuff this week. Yeah. We don't usually see a whole lot at practice, but this week we actually got to see some one-on-ones between the DBs and the wide
Mhm.
receivers. So some guys running routes on actual competition. That was a lot of fun. And I will say,
Mhm.
I think people are going to be happy to hear this if they didn't already see my subtext about it and check out my practice notes story
Mhm.
on PennLive. But the best rep of the day,
Just read
Liam
the
Clifford.
story. I did just very detailed, very detailed. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm doing my best, Bob. But yeah, the best rep of the
No,
day
no.
was
I
Liam
mean, it was
Clifford.
like,
I
whoa,
mean,
this guy. I was just Max. The West Virginia game. I was looking at you have a notebook for the game, and you have great eyes
mhm.
because you write in very very small print. But your game notes are like 10 pages long, and now I know. Now I know, even though I can't read what you're writing, now I know that you're just taking copious notes throughout the
Yeah.
game, and that's reflected in, I think, in your practice post.
Truthfully, I think I've been writing too much during games because I kind of like just forget to look at it afterward. But so I'm working on the sweet spot there. But practice, it's worked out so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some good stuff. If you missed anything, go check out that practice notes
Yeah.
piece. But the one-on-ones was great. As far as what James Franklin had to say to us, the obvious one to get out of the way is Andrew Rappelier. The redshirt freshman tight end is
Yeah.
is out long term. That's all he said. He didn't say it was season ending, but he said it was long term.
Mhm.
We saw him on crutches. It just really unfortunate, truthfully, for him because he got his first career start at West Virginia, and then he talked to us and had a pretty good mindset about this season when we talked to him.
Yeah.
Saw him at practice, and then the next day he was hurt, or the next couple days, whatever. So it's too bad for him, a young guy who we thought was going to break out this year. The other news was Amin Vanover, of course, as you alluded to, the senior defensive end, charged with DUI, driving under the influence of marijuana. We
Yeah.
got the whole report up on
Yep.
PennLive.com as well. But basically, James Franklin just said, I'm not going to talk about whether there will be internal punishment. Um, which not surprising.
Yeah.
He never talks about ongoing legal matters, and I don't know. I can't even really take away from his tone whether there is going to be punishment. So I just that's pretty much what we've got. Is there's
Yeah.
charges against Vanover, and we'll probably find out in the Kent State game whether something happens to him.
Yeah, Max, that's the beauty of playing Kent State in 2 weeks. If James just wants to cross that bridge and show the fans and show the players that even though it's an alleged thing that is serious, that that it's not going to be tolerated if it's indeed what it is. If you have to pick a game to miss on the Penn State schedule this year, probably would be Kent State. So yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot more about Kent State next week, but that program's gone through the gauntlet this year.
Yeah,
And
the
that
golden.
gauntlet shockingly includes St. Francis. So,
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, Max, I don't know about you, I was pretty confident in a couple of positions on the Penn State roster. Edge rusher would have been one. This is
yep,
before. This is even before media day. That's where I'm going with this. I was
sure.
confident about the edge rushers, pretty confident. Tight ends felt good about those, and just
Hmm.
because of the way James and Tom Allen talked about the safety group, I felt
Yeah.
pretty good about that position. Those are three positions that I think in the first week of the season they showed out, right? But things happen. A lot has changed since August 3rd. A lot has changed since West Virginia.
A lot.
There's a world in which, Amin Vanover, might not be in James Franklin's good graces. Kevin Winston could not finish the Bowling Green game, and now Andrew Rappelier, if he's not out for the year, he's not going to play very much the rest of the season. So it's a little bit concerning, and especially since Penn State hasn't really got into its Big Ten schedule. I know they always feel good about their depth. Khalil Dinkins returned on Saturday. Where are you on those position groups? Are you worried at all yet, or do you think that this is just something every major program has to deal with?
I think that I think if you put it on like a scale of 100, the panic level might be at like 45 right now.
Yeah.
KJ was not at practice the other night. He was among those that we did not see. So you can look at the second half of what Penn State did against Bowling Green and say, well, KJ wasn't out there then, and they played really well in the second half. But I do think him going out in the first half played a part in the fact that Bowling Green came out and took that first half lead. So, James loves their safety depth. Zachy Wheatley and Jalen Reed, both very good players, especially Reed. He needs more credit than he's going to get this year. But he's also their top guy at the nickel lion position. And Cam Miller slotted over into that role. And Cam, I think he ended up having a pretty good day on Saturday. But as soon as he took over on the field, Bowling Green was throwing in his direction. We talked to Justin Lustig yesterday, the special teams coordinator who also coaches the nickels, and he said Cam's great on the inside. He shows a lot of flashes, but he's going to have to step up there. And it was pretty clear in Bowling Green's game plan that they were targeting Miller. So I think he's a junior who has played since he was a freshman. So I don't think there's a ton of concern, but I do think that the longer you go without KJ being healthy, the longer you go without seeing someone like Dejon Lane, the freshman who's burning his red shirt, be really ready to contribute on defense. I think it's going to get a little bit higher until you feel more confident at safety. Tight end, I don't think it's a concern. Rappelier is a good player, but as long as Tyler Warren's healthy and as long as you got one more guy behind him, you're going to be fine. So
44 has to stay healthy now for sure. For sure.
Right.
Hey, Penn State, we get feedback in our PennLive Penn State Tech subscribers frequently after games, during games, but one of the things they're just very, very concerned / curious, perturbed would be another word, would be just about, I think they're happy that Harrison Wallace showed he can become a playmaker this year, even though he wasn't a playmaker against Bowling Green, but he was against West Virginia. But, man, Julian Fleming, Liam Clifford, I think no catches for Liam, one catch for 3 yards for Julian Fleming. They're on the field a lot. I noticed in your practice post, you were taking some pretty solid accounting on, the one-on-one battles on the outside. Is there anything you can share for the people who have not read that practice post yet? Is there anything you can share optimistically about the Penn State wideout group? I think Omari Evans, I should mention him because he might not be a guy that is dangerous for all of the route tree, but if you let him get a step on you, he's going to run by you. That's a guy I overlooked him. Is there anything else you're excited about or you saw on the practice field that could give Penn State football fans hope?
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff that we saw, even in just that little 5-minute one-on-one session. Fleming was the first one called out by offensive analyst Mark Dupuis. They started the one-on-one session, and he yells, "Fleming, get over here!" And he went against Jalen Kimber, who got the start in week 1, is their most experienced corner to this point in his career. Excuse me. And he ended up beating Kimber. He beat him on a little in route, just got enough separation, and made the catch. Fleming, I believe, went again and made another catch, but I'd have to go back and check my notes again. That's why at the start of this podcast, I said Liam Clifford's name 3 times, because I know that people want to hear about him.
Oh, yeah.
But he did. He had the best route of the day. It's hard to explain. He drove in and then just made a hard cut right back out and lost his defender completely. And he looked good. Omari Evans as well. He was beat by A.J. Harris on a pretty physical go route.
Yeah.
If I were the ref, I might have thrown the flag. But the thing James Franklin yelled out is like, I love the way you're fighting back to the ball, which I wrote about Evans a couple weeks
Yep.
ago and his big catch against West Virginia and how that could kind of, give him some momentum the rest of the way. And he and James Franklin both said the same thing. They want him attacking back to the ball. So you're absolutely right, Bob. Omari is not a guy who's going to run every route at a high level,
No.
but they're working on those little things that can make his skill set more valuable. And of course, he's already got a touchdown on the season and a couple of huge catches. So we saw some good stuff from that receiver room, and I don't think that that's a knock as well on the cornerbacks, because that group has played pretty well so far. I mean, obviously they got a little out of whack in the first half against Bowling Green, but especially Kimber, Harris, those guys, they've played well. So I
Yeah.
really think, Bob, and you can maybe speak to this a little more, but it's just going to be a different guy every week on that offense.
I think it is. I do think that Tyler Warren, though, is going to be the guy. I mean, he is just because of he doesn't do anything wrong on the field, man. He runs great routes. He can block. He catches every adjustment. He knows how to win in tight space. They can move him around. He's caught all 11 of his targets, which I'm sure Drew is well aware of. But and the other thing I would say about the wideout room is when the running game is going as well as it is, and when the running backs can impact the game as receivers, there's a lot of different ways Andy Kotelnicki and Drew Allar can go in the passing game. I mean, Singleton and Katron Allen, I think both might have explosive plays as receivers this year. Omari, Drew Allar, I think knows that as far as he can throw it, Omari can probably run it down. That's good. It's just going to be a question of at what point in the game, whether it's Julian or Liam, at what point are they going to be able to get open when there's all these other inviting options on the field? You can make a case that there's two wideouts, there's a tight end, and two running backs that are probably preferred options in the passing game. But even though both running backs aren't on the field necessarily at the same time, it's just one of those deals, and maybe that is actually the case. But I just think they need to put something on tape that can worry, I guess.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinators, and maybe that'll happen in the next couple of weeks. Liam Clifford had a couple of nice games last year. He had a big catch at Illinois right before half. I think he had some nice moments in the Peach Bowl loss, and I don't think his teammates and I don't think James would be talking about him the way that they were in August if they weren't pretty confident he could deliver when called upon. So hopefully it's just one of those starts. And the minute he does get going, Max, if he does, that should only enhance what Penn State can do on offense, because it's another person, it's another skill guy really to worry about. But Max, I wanted to also talk about a story you had. Chuck Losey, Penn State's strength and conditioning coach, was made available this week. So was Justin Lustig, the special teams coordinator. But I always like the strength coaches because they always give you nuggets that you can only get from them, right? You can't get them. You're not going to get him really from James. You're not going to get him from the position coaches. You're not going to get him from the players. He's a guy that has done a great job the last couple of years. They always show out at the combine. But it's just something that I think we've noticed, and he talked about, is that I'm not ready to call Drew Allar a dual threat yet, Max, but he is he is so much better with his mobility. And I'm not just talking about as a runner, because he's done some really nice things as a runner, but extending plays, maybe avoiding the rush, those things that I didn't really see that last year. He slimmed down. He definitely looks like he's changed his body. I think your story said he feels faster. I think he
did say that.
Step, Max, even if it's a step, that's a big deal. And you always know, Max, when you're talking to a strength coach when he uses a term like foundational strength. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really know. I think I know what he means. But anyway, that's a big strength and conditioning term. But I do think that Drew's transformation this year isn't necessarily just about him as a passer. I really think his movement skills have positioned him to make an impact as a thrower and as a runner.
So I take the foundational strength thing. You're totally right. Like, a strength coach just uses terms that like are an in the building thing
Yeah.
that you might not fully understand, but I take it to just kind of mean his general like weight training ability, which, Chuck Losey said Drew was kind of behind in that department when he
Yes.
first got to Penn State.
Yes,
And
he was.
that's kind of funny to think about for a kid who burned his redshirt freshman year and was the starting quarterback by his second season, but he was a little bit behind. And then he said, for some guys it just takes a little time, and for Drew it just took time. And now this summer they really loved what he did in the spring. They really loved what he did in the summer, and you see it out on the field. I mean, that game against West Virginia, he had 44 yards. That was his second most in his career. He had 49 last year against Michigan State.
Mhm.
Drew said he's down anywhere between 7 to 11 pounds. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously weights fluctuate day to day,
Mhm.
but a lot of that is to the nutrition staff at Penn State, which they've been talking a lot about with that new training table. But yeah, Drew looks better. He's talking more confidently, which is something that I know we've all just kind of harped on over and over again. He really does look a bit like just a different kid right now. I mean,
Yeah.
the way he talks to us, the way he handles himself on the field, running the ball against West Virginia against a really good linebacker, he stiff-armed the heck out of a kid and
Yeah.
got in his face about it. So it's just, there's a lot of differences with Drew, and it started with Chuck Losey in the offseason. And one more thing that I did want to add, Bob, on our
Yep.
last point
Yep.
with targeting different guys in the game. James Franklin has said now after both games that they're not doing well enough on third down to get
Fair
the
enough.
offense where they want to be. So, or I guess it was 2 nights ago because we're recording on Thursday. So Tuesday night, he said like there were 2 third downs in that game where we could have gotten them and it would have led to about 12 more plays offensively.
Right.
But we didn't get them. So we're not able to spread the ball around like we want to. And, on the same chain, Drew threw the ball. I don't remember how many times, but he had 11 completions. 8 of them went to Tyler Warren. So,
Yeah.
if you're clamoring for more from the other receivers, which is fair to some extent,
Mhm.
you kind of just got to look at it holistically and say, well, they want to get them involved. It's just not been how the game's gone to this point.
Yeah, it's funny. Last year, right? They were James because they just in the dying weeks of Mike Yurcich's reign of terror at Penn State.
It's a great way to describe it.
They were really emphasizing, third down success, time of possession, taking yards when they're there, whether it's 3 or 4 yards. They were going for it on fourth down, all those things. And this year, it hasn't flipped, but with Kotelnicki scheming guys open, getting their best athletes the ball in favorable situations, whether it's Omari, whether it's Tyler, whether it's Harrison Wallace outside, or whether it's the 2 running backs, getting them the ball with like free access to the line of scrimmage. They're creating many more chunk plays. So the third down eye blemish hasn't really it's really not been that big of a problem this year, but it could, as if they face a good defense, Max, and I'm not sure that they have yet, that can limit their big plays. The third down thing will come back and bite them in the butt. If they can't get up to like 40, low 40s, I think it's probably where they want to be. Closer to 50 would be great, but they're not there yet. And the luxury of all these big plays the first couple of weeks have kind of overshadowed that. But I do think that's something to watch moving forward is, can they get more consistent on third down? Because I think, Max, when they're in 3rd and 5 or long anymore moving forward, I think they're just going to double or triple team Tyler Warren and say, go ahead, pick a receiver, any receiver, and try to get it to him. That's going to be, I think, one of the adjustments Penn State's going to have to make. But that's the beauty, Max. That's the beauty of an early bye week and a game with Kansas State lined up 2 Saturdays from now. So we'll see. Anything else strike you this week? I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Big Ten in general, but it's your bye week. I don't really know if you're going to be watching football on Saturday, but I just think there's some interesting games in the Big Ten this Saturday that I'm going to be watching. But anything else stick out to you um, with Penn State through two games, excuse me, or something maybe that James said after practice?
I'm gonna leave the Big Ten slate to you, Bob.
All right.
I will be watching football this weekend
Yeah.
because I don't have anything better to do, and I also enjoy it. But you write the Big Ten power poll, you're
Oh
all
yeah.
over it.
That's
So
right. That's right.
I'm gonna leave that to you to send us out. But I do. There was one more thing that I did want to hit on. Um,
Yeah.
Franklin mentioned when he was assessing their defense's performance against Bowling Green that they had some issues with that new on-field technology they're allowed to use, which I thought was fascinating. Because when they're playing at home, they want to use that green dot with the in-helmet
Mhm.
speaker from the coach to the player. But when they're at home, the Beaver Stadium crowd gets loud when they're on defense. So he seemed to say, he didn't say it explicitly, but it sounded like they had some issues getting calls in against Bowling Green. And so they've kind of been workshopping how to get around that. They were
Right.
using the headsets at practice while we were there. I don't know if this ends up in them just signaling the defense like old times. But it's pretty clear that there's been an adjustment. And he also said the same thing when asked about Tom Allen. Like, well, not only has this guy not been a defensive coordinator since 2016, but like, he's also learning how to use all this new technology. So that was a small nugget that maybe something to watch through the rest of the way, depending on how things go, especially at home.
Yeah, and again, like I do think that that road win over West Virginia has freed them up to kind of. I mean, September is going to get more challenging as we get closer to the end of it. I mean, that
Hmm.
Illinois team might be a little bit frisky because
Yeah.
that was a nice win against Kansas. They have
Hmm.
some intriguing options, and I'm looking forward to that game. But just I'm just not sure once you get past Ohio State and I guess Penn State for now. I'm just not sure about the pecking order, but I think this is going to be one of those Saturdays where where our eyes aren't going to be glued to kind of what Penn State is doing. And there's just a couple games I think that I'm going to be watching. Beginning at noon, Alabama is going to Wisconsin. They are 15-point favorites. Wisconsin has not really looked good at all
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
first 2 weeks. And so I'm just curious to see if they have another gear in them or they're trying to transition to a different kind of offense. I'm not sure how that's going to go. That's just
Yeah.
kind of a weird matchup, I think, for a noon kick. I'm going to be watching that one. Two more that are intriguing to me, though, Max. I mean, if you're looking for games to watch, Purdue is hosting Notre Dame, and I know that that's like a 3:30 kick. The Irish are 10-point favorites. The game's in West Lafayette. It'll probably just be all Fighting Irish fans. Just a little curious about Notre Dame and kind of where they are. Also about Purdue, right? And the last game I just want to say is it's a pretty weird world we live in, Max, where Indiana can go to Southern California and play UCLA and be a 3-point favorite. So I know that speaks to a little bit about Indiana's new coach. I think it's Signetti. I think that's his name.
Hmm.
He's a pretty good coach. They scored a bunch of points against nobody, but that UCLA win at Hawaii 2 weeks ago, they were life and death to win that game.
Yeah.
So though, I mean, it's not a great Big Ten slate, but there's a chance. There's a chance that Purdue could be 3-0. There is a chance that Indiana could be 3-0. And there's a chance that Alabama might just annihilate Wisconsin. In Madison, I don't think they will, but when you talk about what Wisconsin's done, Max, the first 2 weeks, I don't think they're holding anything back for the Tide. Let's put it that way. So they
No.
just might not be that good enough. And that was a game that Penn State's going to visit Wisconsin later in the season. I had some trepidations about that game, and if they get skunked by the Tide, those trepidations are going to vanish.
Yeah, I mean, look, Alabama's a good team. Obviously, lost Nick Saban, lost a lot of
Yeah.
talent, but they're still a very good football team. Um, Wisconsin's an odd one because Luke Fickell did such a great job at
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Yep.
I'm a Cincinnati area native, so
Mm-hmm.
I've been down to Nippert Stadium once before,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just I don't get it. And the other thing is, I read, I think there was an ESPN story this offseason about their philosophy change on offense. I don't know. I understand a fan base wanting Wisconsin, like, in their hearts to be a ground and pound team,
Yeah.
but you hire a coach, I think you should let him do what he's used to doing. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see how it goes. Fickle's not. I don't think he's on the hot seat yet. He probably one more year before he gets there, but
Yeah.
we'll see. And then the other two that you mentioned are just interesting because
Yeah.
Purdue's got a first year coach who guys seem to be enjoying playing for, but they're maybe a little lacking on the talent side. And Indiana is, I mean, the way Kurt Signetti talks,
Yeah.
you'd think they'd
He's a
be winning a
confident
Big
guy,
Ten
man.
championship this year. So they're fun schools. I cannot wait to watch the Old Oaken Bucket this year. But
Maybe Nolan Rucci knew what he was doing when he left the Badgers. Maybe he
he
saw
might have.
the writing on the wall. He's starting to play a little bit at Penn State in that
Yeah,
timeshare with Anthony Donko. So maybe there was a little bit more to it than him wanting to be closer to home. But yeah, I
might
think
have
it's
been.
going to be a good bye week for the PennLive staff for the Penn State beat. Hopefully, no one else on the Penn State team will get injured or anything like
Yeah.
that. We don't want that. Max, I hope you do well on the golf course at some point this week. But
Well, we'll see.
Penn State fans, enjoy your bye week, and we'll be back next week. We're going to be back. Well, real quick, if you had to guess what the betting line will open at for Penn State coming to Penn State, keeping in mind that Bowling Green was a 34-point dog at kickoff when it kicked off. What's your best guess on the opening line for Penn State, Kent State?
I mean, Kent State lost to St. Francis, man.
I need a
Like,
number, Max. I need a number because I'll give you.
I think it's probably bigger than 34.5. I think it's I don't think it's much bigger because Penn State struggled against Bowling
Right,
Green, but I'll give it 37.5, maybe.
right. I would lay.
I don't.
I'll lay those points right now, Max. I think it's going to be in the mid 40s.
Yeah.
Just
No, I agree with you.
just
I mean,
because they are. Yeah, and I think it's just going to be one of those years. It's like I feel bad for them. I feel bad for Akron. I like Joe Moorhead a lot, right? Because he's a former Penn State OC. They dug their own grave when they decided to open at Ohio State, and then go to Rutgers, and it's tough. But yeah, I think
Kent State did the same thing. I
mid
mean,
40s. Yep. Yeah, when they decided to play St. Francis in week 2, they were just opening up the can of they got opened up the can of whoop ass on them.
right. And they started at Pitt, then they lost at home to St. Francis, and now they have to go on the road to Tennessee and Penn State. So
Right, that's right.
by the time those guys get to Happy Valley, I'm not sure that they'll want to play football anymore.
Yeah, it could be a little bit. Yeah, it could be a little bit. I don't even think deflating is the right word. It's just do we ready for this? Because I'm sure they're going to come out of the Tennessee game just not feeling great physically, and then
Right.
Penn State's got fresh legs. They're probably feeling like they let the fan base down against Bowling Green.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be a little bit more sharp, I think, for this one. But yeah, we'll see. I say mid 40s, but Max, you, me, Johnny McGonigal, we'll all be back for some more podcasts. We've still got some stories to get to for the rest of the bye week. But Max, enjoy your bye week. I'll try and enjoy mine. Penn State fans, please follow along on PennLive. Our tech subscribers will still be firing off some weekend stuff. So good weekend, good weather, Max. Good talking to you guys. We'll see you next week. Stop recording.